Right, so what I thought we'd do first, Brian didn't want to come out for this bit because it's all about him, but just to, for those who haven't seen this, there's a little feature on Midlands Today, which was about Diamond Head, just to kind of set the scene before we go into it, so please enjoy.
Talk about some of the most influential bands in music history. The name Diamond Head doesn't immediately come to mind. In fact, most of you have probably never even heard of the Stourbridge band.
But for many of the biggest heavy metal bands in the world, the group are the reason they formed in the first place. This weekend, Diamond Head played the biggest concert of their 35-year career, and Ben Sidwell was there.
This is Sonisphere, the biggest touring music festival in the world. This weekend it's been in the UK at Nebworth, with 60,000 people there each day to see some of the biggest names in rock and heavy metal.
Tonight's headliners, Metallica, are probably the biggest heavy metal band in the world, having played to millions and millions of people during their career. The odd thing is, they probably wouldn't be here at all if it wasn't for a small, fairly unknown band from Stourbridge.
Diamond Head are a heavy metal band who formed in Stourbridge back in 1976. This weekend they played the biggest gigs of their career. Over 2 nights, both here in England and in France, they performed to more than 100,000 people.
I came here in 1979 to see Led Zeppelin, and you know, that was as big as it got, and I just thought, you know, I'd never be on a stage this big. And now, you know, scroll forward 30 years, and I've just done Nebworth, you know, so it's awesome, you know.
Although Diamond Head have never had much commercial success or sold many records, their influence on the heavy metal music scene is huge.
Yeah, you remember
You're
me?
the guy, you're the reason we're here.
Oh, well,
Oh, you're the guy that wrote all those songs that made us, and that influenced and made us kind of who we are, and we owe all this to you.
Metallica have sold over 100 million records worldwide. As a 17-year-old in Los Angeles, drummer Lars Ulrich was a huge Diamond Head fan. He travelled to the UK to see them play live and spent 5 weeks with the band.
So we took to him, you know, and he was, you know, full of energy and friendly. And so I invited him, you know, where you stop in and come and stay with me, you know, if you want.
On his return to America and inspired by his time in Stourbridge, Lars put an advert in the paper looking to form a band. The result was Metallica.
I just watched that rise to the top with astonishment, really, that this guy who came over and stayed with me is now the biggest band in the world. How's that happened, you know?
If it wasn't for Brian Tatler, there's a pretty good chance that none of us would be here tonight, all right? Give it up for Brian Tatler one more time.
At the end of the night, the members of Metallica, Anthrax, Slayer and Megadeth, who are known as heavy metal's Big Four, took to the stage with Brian to perform a Diamond Head song. Yet another sign of just how highly they all regard this Stourbridge band. Ben Sidwell, BBC Midlands Today at the Sonisphere Festival.
Wow, fantastic.
What a night for them, great
I have,
night.
you know, I've seen Metallica a few times.
But not Diamond
Terrific.
Head.
Hi,
Until
that's true.
now.
No. Right, let's find out how the weather's looking. Here's Shafali.
Right, then I think that's a good cue for Brian to have a big round of applause, please. Come on then, Brian. Come on to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Is this on?
Hello, it's working, yeah. Thank you and welcome, and thank you for coming to see myself do this kind of thing. I've not really done this, you know, like a talk like this before. I've just done interviews and things like that, but I thought let's give it a go and see how it works. And obviously people are interested, so we can start. I can play the guitar a little bit, or I can do that in a bit, or should we just start? I mean, I probably should.
Talking about the guitar, let's put that picture up on you.
Yeah, I probably should. There you go. That's me on the right. I probably should say why I started playing the guitar, which dates back to really my brother. In 1968, my sister won £500 on Spot the Ball, and with some of the money, she brought my brother that guitar, a semi-acoustic, and he started to learn and tried to learn things like Wooden Heart, you know, ding, ding, ding. And then in 1971, he went to see Black Sabbath at Birmingham Town Hall, and he said the minute Tony Iommi came on and struck up the opening chords to War Pigs with incredible sustain and distortion and feedback, he said, I knew then I had to get an electric guitar and an amplifier. So he did that. He bought a solid body guitar. It was £14, and you know, started learning and formed his own band. So I would be around his band. They would rehearse in the house and in the garage, and I'd become fascinated by the equipment. You know, drum kits, and start having a little go on the bass guitar and things like that. And then he bought another guitar later in '74, I believe, and then let me use his old guitar. So from then on, because there was a guitar lying around the house that I could pick up whenever I wanted without having to get into trouble or ask Dave, I started practicing a bit more realistically, kind of at a moment probably when I heard Richie Blackmore, you know, on things like Machine Head from Deep Purple, and I thought I'd like to be able to play like that. I'd like to be able to play that solo or this song. So I'm going to have to practice. I'm going to have to really get good. So that's what I did. And then, like a lot of teenagers, you get obsessed with things. It might be motorbikes or fishing or girls. But I became obsessed with guitars and going to see bands. My brother used to take me to see bands. I went, you know, he took me to see Black Sabbath and things like that, you know. Gentle Giant. I don't know if you know all these bands, Can, Amandor, 10 years after. So I had this musical upbringing, partly thanks to my brother, and was immersed in all that. And of course, the next step is to form a band. And so I formed my own band in 1976 with me on guitar and Duncan Scott on drums. And that's all we had at first. It would be trying to write songs in my bedroom, with a little guitar and a drum kit that we made ourselves out of boxes and biscuit tins and things like that. And I think, you know, it all started there. And I don't know what we were thinking. We probably just thought, this is how you do it. I'd honestly got no idea how to become like a big band. And you know, when you go and see a band with lights and PA and proper equipment, it's very impressive to an impressionable teenager. You know, we would just try, and then we realised we had to get a singer. So we auditioned singers from my school. This is just before we left school in 1976. And we found this guy called Sean Harris, who I've known a long time, but hadn't got a clue he could sing. And off we went, really. And the band became, you know, Diamond Head. I thought of the name, and off we went, really, as I say, trying to write songs, really. We couldn't really do any gigs because we hadn't got a clue how to do gigs, how to book a gig, how to promote it. So all we did really was write songs. I think in 76 we didn't do any gigs. 77 we did one gig. 78 we did 2 gigs. So as you can see, we've got no idea of how to play live, and probably that's what we wanted to do, but we just haven't got a clue. So that's kind of...
That's your start, I guess.
A start in a nutshell, if you like, yeah.
So kind of really, is this one of the early photos of the...
What are we looking at?
One of the first lineup photos here?
Yeah, it's the first. There was a couple of bass players before Colin, but I don't normally go into that because it becomes complicated. Yeah. But everybody knows that lineup really, with himself, Sean, and Colin, and you can't really see Duncan Scott on the drums, can you?
Yeah.
And that guy there, it looks a bit like Jeff Lynne, do you think?
Yeah.
That's one of our managers, probably our second manager, a chap called Dave Morris. It's such a, you know, Colin's going at it there, and he's moving so fast, it's too fast for the camera lens.
So that would have been around 77?
Probably 78.
Yeah, okay.
I'd say. It's not a gig, it's a rehearsal or something. Yeah. There's no crowd there, and I don't remember doing it except somebody said we'll take some pictures, possibly for publicity or something.
So what was the first point that it started picking up then from there? What
Can
was
I just grab me drink?
Yeah.
Dry mouth. What's the question, sorry?
So what was the first point that the band started picking up then from there? And then what was the first person to get involved and kind of say, right, we should get you guys out?
Okay.
We've got something there, something
We
special.
did have a little brief thing with a guy called Chris Phipps, who was a DJ at Radio WM, and he also presented Look Here, which was a Midlands sort of, programme about 6:30 at night, and they featured local bands and artists and things like that. Sort of a promotion thing, I guess. And Duran Duran were on there as one of their, if not their first ever TV appearance, and it was probably our first TV appearance as well. So that was 1980. But as I say, before then, we had a manager. Well, I didn't say, but I'm going to tell you now. We had a manager called Steve Busfield, and he booked us about 10 gigs in 1979. So that felt like we were moving in the right direction. And then I think we had at least 3 or 4 managers, and then we had this guy called Reg Fellows getting involved in around, again, 79 into 1980. And the reason he got involved was he was a local businessman in from Lye, had a cardboard box factory, and he started going out with the singer's mum, Sean Harris's mum, who was the secretary at his company. So Linda said to him, come and watch my son's band, they're very good, blah, blah, blah. So he came to see us at a little tiny gig that's no longer there, called the New Inns in Wollaston, and knocked that down. And we played there, and he probably said, yeah, you're really good and all that. And he decided, or possibly Sean's mum said, why don't you put some money into the band? They need a PA, they need things like that, as you do. So he started doing that, helping out. He probably didn't have much of an idea what to do with a band, but he probably thought, well, I can see that they need some finance because they've got nothing, But probably just about got a drum kit by then. So he, as I say, that's what he did. He put a bit of money into it, and then of course we did our first single called "Shoot Out the Lights," which he probably paid for. We went to a studio in Worcester for a day, and we recorded the A and B side. Mixed, all done in 24 hours, and put it out, and people seem to like it.
Yeah.
Which is great. And then of course I did notice when you tour, when we did any gigs around the country. So I can remember vividly we went to Sunderland, a place called the Sunderland Mecca Centre, and the only song these people knew was "Shoot Out the Lights" because it had been sent out to the DJ who played it on his rock night. And he'd probably say, next week we've got Diamond Head. So it was, you play your set, and then you get to Shoot Out the Lights, and it suddenly pick up, and they go, oh, we know this one, and they shoot out the lights, and they'd sing along, and we realised, you've got to have a record out, haven't you, really? Because otherwise, they don't know any of this material we're writing. We were never one for covers. We're only interested in writing our own songs. We did do a few. We did Paranoid, and we did Motorhead by Motorhead.
Is it, because I can remember, because we've had various conversations before this talk, obviously, leading up to this, and there's been a few points. You said something along the lines of you wrote something in the reams of 100 tracks or something like that.
Yeah, it's true. People don't believe that because bands don't do it anymore.
Bands don't do that anymore.
They're lucky to write the album, aren't they?
Yeah.
In time to get the album recorded. And I can only think that from forming in 1976 to making the first album, Like Me to the Nations, in 1980 is a 4-year gap. And in that time, instead of doing lots of gigs, we just kept writing songs. And I had a cassette recorder, and we would just record the songs. And I always say that we learned to write songs with this recorder, by recording them, listening back to it, and then thinking, I don't want that bit. That bit's rubbish, and perhaps we should put that bit there and re-record the song. And I think we learned the art of songwriting and arranging, which has been very useful and it's been a big part of Diamond Head. That's the thing that normally keeps a band alive, isn't it? The songs.
Yeah.
So I think we learned that craft in that 4 years and kept improving and getting better and better. And by the time we went into the studio to record Like to the Nations, we had around 100 songs. And of course, a lot of them were awful dirges, one finger riffs.
Yeah.
But we'd written them and moved on. And we were starting to write complicated songs like Am I Evil and Helpless and The Prince. Not easy songs to write. And so the 7 songs on Like to the Nations were the cream of that catalogue. And also, we had all been played live, so we always say we road tested the material. So therefore, it had a flow. It worked. We knew it would work live, so it was going to work on a record. You didn't just chance it, and think, well, hopefully it'll be all right. You kind of knew it should be all right because it worked live.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there. Obviously, bands that they could learn from to write that many tracks before they even.
But who does that? I don't hear of bands writing 50, 60 songs, but it wouldn't hurt, would it?
No.
It was okay for us, but it's very frustrating while you're waiting to get a record deal or to make a record. But what we took from that is that we did improve quite quickly. So when that first album came out, people were taken aback a little bit. We sent copies to people like Jeff Barton at Sounds, and he loved it and said that ridiculous quote. I mean, I'm embarrassed to say it, but he said, "There's more great riffs on that song, Am I Evil, I presume, than on the first 4 Black Sabbath albums," which is ridiculous, but it's a lovely compliment, and it probably caught people's attention. Oh, if Jeff Barton likes it to this degree, we better check it out. We better have a look.
So going on from that, what's some of the other highlights from that period of early Diamond Head then? And then we'll talk about how the time after that. But yeah, what's another
one of my favourite gigs? 2 of my favourite gigs were we got to support AC/DC in January 1980. So we were all big AC/DC fans. We'd all seen them on Let There Be Rock and Power Age. And now this is the Highway to Hell tour. And we'd already seen them at the Odeon, supported by Def Leppard. They rescheduled 2 gigs, Southampton and Newcastle. Because of the fire and that sort of thing. So anyway, Def Leppard had now disappeared into the studio to record their second album. So they couldn't do these 2 gigs. So the manager, who was Peter Mensch, who is a famous manager and manages Metallica, etc., was managing AC/DC and a company called Lieber Krebs. So he got us to do the 2 outstanding dates, and then I didn't think anything of that at the time. I just thought, fantastic, we get to support AC/DC, it's going to be great, and it was great. Both gigs were sold out. We absolutely loved it, and AC/DC's crew were fantastic to us, made sure we got sound check and everything sounded great. Couldn't ask for a better setup. And then the manager, Peter Mensch, came into our dressing room for a chat, and he was an American, and he was cool, and he was saying the trick is, and you got to do this, and you got to do that, and we were fascinated by this guy. We probably hadn't met many Americans at this point, and he is AC/DC's manager telling us all kinds of revelations about the music industry. Now, scroll forward a bit, and I think, okay, I know what he was doing then. He came to check us out. He came to see if he liked us, if he thought he could do anything with us, if they could manage us. And I sometimes think he either thought, no, I'm not going to manage Diamond Head, or he thought, right, the mom is the manager. Sean Harris's mom became our manager, for those that don't know, and Reg still. So he either thought, I'm not going to be able to pull Diamond Head away from the management they already have, so rather than get into a mess, I'll just walk away and leave it. Or, like I say, maybe he didn't see the potential. So you could say he was right in a way, because we didn't become.
So what were the problems with the management then? Because that's kind of led into that. What would you say is the main problem with having the singer's mom as the manager?
It's probably never a good thing, is it, to have the singer's mom as the manager, isn't it? You want someone who's done it before, objective, outside the box, can walk in and go, right, you're playing tomorrow, you've got to be up at 9 o'clock in the morning, get on the plane. Whereas, because it was Sean's mom, Sean would just say, I ain't doing this, and would eventually start kind of dictating how things would be, rather than... and I would imagine the management, who probably, we've never done this before, so we're learning on the job as well, probably thought that Sean knew what he was doing because he's the singer and he's co-writing all the songs. And he's obviously incredibly talented. So it didn't really work in the long run. And
well, it's well documented in your book as well. You know,
I wrote a book called Am I Evil? And one of the reasons I wrote that book, because so many people were asking me what happened with MCA, with Sean, with Canterbury, you know, what happened with Milton Keynes Bowl, etc. So there's quite a few unanswered, you know, stories and things. And instead of me standing there backstage or, you know, at each gig trotting out these answers, I thought I'm going to write a book, put it all down, so I don't forget it when I eventually get dementia. Or as I ain't going to keep repeating myself to these guys, you know, who are obviously concerned and want to know what happened. So anyway, that was one of the problems, that they hadn't done it before, they're learning on the job, and because it's Sean's mom, Sean probably started to take control and everything revolved around the goose that lays golden eggs. And it was all based at Sean's house, Bagley Street, you know, his mom. They roped in all the family, like Sean's brother-in-law was the tour manager, Sean's brother was, you know, the drum roadie, or, you know, it became really, you know, what's the word?
Incestuous.
Yeah, incestuous. Something like that. I remember Duncan, the drummer, saying he got Darren, Sean's brother, as drum roadie, whether he wanted him or not. And he said, we did this gig with Slade at Monmouth Green in 1980. Fantastic gig. Darren's the new drum roadie. So there's about 3 support bands, then Diamond Head's on. And so off you go, Darren, set the drums up. And Duncan said he set him up in a straight line. So when he came, he said it was like this, trying, you know, trying to rescue this ridiculous setup, and he couldn't really say anything. You know, you can't say your brother's a waste of space. Like it became a little bit. It was all you know, revolving around Sean.
Because my impression, like I say, of the book after reading was you being a 18, 19-year-old kind of guy at the time. I felt you were pushed into a few things, shall we say, by the management, you know, which you probably didn't feel comfortable with doing. And it kind of, it walked into, where it was almost on the line of, they weren't professional, they didn't know what they were doing, and you kind of had to just go along with things, really.
A little bit. Yeah. You do have to keep your singer happy. Yeah. So if he wants to do this or not do that, it's difficult to talk your singer into doing things he don't want to do.
Well, the other story, you know, we won't dwell too much on this, but
no, it's too down in it. We need some fun.
The other thing, you know, because
it drags me into a depression if I'm not careful.
Yeah.
So let's.
The only other thing I wanted to mention was the publishing thing, because when you were explaining about the publishing situation, I just couldn't get my head around what was the deal that Reg did with the studio at the time.
Oh, okay.
Who we won't mention.
Oh my God! But that's depressing as well. Okay,
We'll get that one over.
I'll get that one over. Okay, so I don't know if you know what publishing is. I didn't. So I signed a contract for a 15-year publishing deal in 1979. And what Reg had decided was, right, we'll record the album ourselves. We haven't got a record deal, so we'll record the album ourselves, and we'll do it at this studio in Worcester called The Old Smithy. We've got it for a week, so you've got to record the whole album and mix it in a week. And we thought, brilliant, that's fantastic, because it's a good studio, and we'd already recorded Shoot Out the Lights there. So in we go, record the album, and it's this album, Light to the Nation. So it's a good album, everybody likes it. Then Reg thought he could get a deal with it by shopping it round the labels, but they didn't want to do that because I think he wanted to do a licensing deal, and that's a whole different kettle of fish. I think they would have liked to have been involved in the production, the choice of songs, the studio, A&R men, that's what they do, rather than be given a finished product. So years later, when Metallica royalties were obviously around and coming to our, we signed another publishing deal later, but some of the songs on Light to the Nations got covered by Metallica, and instead of the money coming to Zomba, who we signed to in '82 when we actually signed a record deal, they were going to this company called Happy Face Music Publishing, which was part of the studio. So when I looked into it, I realised that this handshake deal Reg had done with the studio owner for a week's studio time meant that the studio owner now owned half of the publishing for all our songs for 15 years, and Reg owned the other half.
Yeah.
So Sean and myself were not even listed as the writers, because it would say the writers herein known as Reg Fellows and Muffin Murphy. So of course I didn't know what publishing was, and I think a lot of bands and a lot of artists you hear sign terrible deals because of naivety and lack of, you've got to get a lawyer, but you don't want to be spending money on lawyers, do you? When you're 19 and you've got no money. So we signed a terrible publishing deal, and we lost money, but fortunately we got it back. Or we didn't get the money back we'd lost, but we got the songs back, and everything was eventually signed over to Zomba Publishers, who were a proper company who accounted every 6 months, and the royalties then came through.
Did Lars help you out at this point?
I think he put me in touch with a lawyer.
Yeah.
And whenever they did anything, he would make sure that everything was credited correctly, and he would call me up and say, oh, look, we're going to record Helpless, can you send over the lyrics? And he would probably say, are you getting your royalties for Am I Evil, which they'd covered in '84? And if I'd have said no, he would have said, well, you should be, and let's look into it. So things, eventually did get sorted, fortunately, but I did lose money, and as I say, we signed terrible deals because I think we were young and naive.
Yeah.
But you hear about...
But which band isn't at 19?
I think George Michael signed a terrible deal. I think he goes to Hollywood, and Beatles.
So at what period was did you first meet Lars and him coming into the scene then?
Okay, I first met Lars. I'm sure everybody's heard this.
Yeah.
I first met Lars in 1981. He'd sent a couple of letters through before to our fan club. He bought a copy of the album, which was available online, not online, in Sounds, where we took 6 adverts out. It was available for £3.50 through Sounds. Lars sent for a copy in LA. He must have ordered Sounds and seen this advert. Loved it, wrote back to the same address and said, I like Diamond Head, blah, blah, blah. So eventually he came over to see us in something like July of '81 and came backstage to this gig we were playing at the Woolwich Odeon in London and introduced himself. And he was 17, and we were so impressed that this chap had come all the way from the US to see Diamond Head that, you know, we took to him. We thought, wow, you know, nobody's ever done that before. And he's 17 as well. It must cost him a lot of money. And he's got a lot of nerve to get on a plane himself and all that. I'd never done it. And as I say, no one had ever come from America to see us before. So, of course, we took to him, and I just said, come and stay. Where are you staying? You know, come and stay with me. Stop. I mean, I'm still living at my parents' house, but he's welcome to sleep on the floor. Yeah. And I lent him my brother's old sleeping bag, and he slept on that, in that for a week. And we went out and, you know, we'd have a drink, and he'd buy albums. He seemed to have loads of money on him, and he'd go to this distributor in somewhere called something, I can't remember. And he bought a load of new wave of British heavy metal albums, Saxon and Witchfind and all, and we'd sit and listen to them. And then he went and stopped at Sean's as well. And in this period, we did 3 gigs, and he would come in the car with us. We'd go to the gig in the car. There'd be 4 of us in the car, 5 of us in the car, with John driving, Sean in the passenger seat, myself, Colin and Duncan in the back seat. And then suddenly we got Lars, you know, budge up. So there'd be 4 of us on the back seat driving to like Leamington or somewhere. And so we must have liked him, you know, we let this guy in to our little inner sanctum. And I suppose he never forgot that hospitality and acts of kindness that we showed him. And
well, as we saw in the video at the beginning, you know, there was a great quote to say, if it wasn't for Diamond Head and Brian Tatler, there's a good chance none of us would be here tonight.
It's a big quote, though, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a massive thing, you know, for him to say on stage.
It's hard to take that kind of quote, because I always think, well, we're probably part of the story, but I'm not going to take all the credit.
So around, what I wanted to touch on now is around the MCA period, which I think is it this picture here?
Oh, yeah.
Would that be the MCA?
Sort of. That's actually Donington, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, we're on MCA at that point. That's one of the first gigs we did after we made Canterbury. So unfortunately, the lineup had completely changed. That guy on the top left, that's the only gig he did with us. And it was Donington. It was ridiculous. So a chap called Bob, he was a friend of Merv's. And he played keyboards in some, you know, club band for like 30 years. He said he'd done about 5,000 gigs. So well, I suppose he can play, then he must be all right. Yeah. And he learned the stuff and did the gig. And it probably went back to, you know.
Can you just talk us through the MCA period though? Because what I've in my notes here is just looking at, obviously you were getting frustrated that there was a lot of the bands and contemporaries of yours were getting signed before Diamond Head were. Yeah. And then you got your deal with MCA. So, you know, how did that happen? And you know,
well, there
the amount
is
of money which was being spent on different things. You know,
there's a period. The new wave of British heavy metal happened in 1979. So we thought we're perfect for this. We're right, we're the right age. We've got everything going. We've got the singles. You had the lights. Then we did Light to the Nations in 1980. We couldn't get a deal for that. I mean, God knows why exactly, but it seemed like everybody else is getting signed. Girls' School got signed, Saxon, Def Leppard, Iron Maiden, Angel Witch signed to EMI, and everybody seemed to be getting signed except Awesome. There was even a full-page piece in Sounds from Paul Suter, who was a fan of the band, and it said, "Why will no one sign this band?" Which you've got to think, what's going on here exactly? You know, if people like Barton and Paul Suter like us that much, usually I would imagine record labels will scour the press or even talk to the journalists and say, who's hot, what's good? Malcolm Dole, he would have said, Diamond Head are good, you should check out Diamond Head. But still, no one seemed to sign us. The other slight anomaly here is that I think our management had an unrealistic goal for what a record deal is. They probably thought we'll be like Led Zeppelin and we'll sign to Atlantic Records for 5 albums for £200,000 advance. Whereas what we were being offered was, we'll give you 2 singles And if they're not a hit, we won't pick up the option to make an album. So of course Reg would say, no thanks, and leave the building pronto. So, and then he'd come back and he'd say, you know, we've been to see Arista and they want 2 singles, and so we're not going to sign to them. So this was really confusing, and it could have been that they just thought, well, we're not going to risk everything on this band because, yeah, they're a good band, but they're managed by, you know, 2 nobodies who don't know what they're doing. So it's a gamble. So when we were signed eventually to MCA, Charlie Ayres, who signed us to MCA, was a big fan of the band, obviously, and came to see us, and we were happy to sign with him because he was so into it, and he was, you know, a nice guy. So we did the deal, we inked the deal and all that. And I've forgotten a point. There's 2 points and I'm mixed up with.
We're talking about the amount of money, I think, which was floating around for that deal, and you told some stories to me before about the amount of money you were spending on things like taxis and things like that, just going into it.
There wasn't a big advance. Yeah. I think we might have got $5,000 from Zonda Publishing, which is nothing really for probably a 10-year deal. I mean, it's a band called 3 Colours Red, I know, and they signed to EMI Publishing in '95 for $500,000.
Yeah.
So that's a good deal. We got $5,000. I don't think the MCA advances very much, and we probably spent it on lights and PA and road crew. There was always seemed to have too many roadies who were getting paid more than me. You know, as I've grown older, I realised I can set gear up, I can plug in a guitar and turn an amp on. I don't have to have a guitar tech, especially if you've got to pay this guy 50 quid a day or whatever. So we'd end up on £25 a week, but we've got about 10 crew. So that was daft. I don't know how that happened, really. Sometimes I'll probably let things happen to my mistake. But anyway, yeah, so the money would soon get swallowed up that we had from MCA. And then before long, you're in debt to the label, and then they've got control because you're in debt. And they don't have to do what you ask them, because if anything, you've got to do what they ask. So the taxi story is that when we were making Canterbury, we were in London for about 2.5 months. They got us a house, and we would have to drive across London to the studio in Willesden, and we probably in Maida or something. And so every day we'd have to have 2 taxis, backwards and forwards, and MCA told us or they would give us a list of the expenses, and we learned that we'd spend £7,000 on taxis, which is just madness, isn't it? And somebody said, well, what you should have done is buy an old car for a couple of grand, drive yourself backwards and forwards, and then sold the bloody car. 7,000 on taxi. I mean, you could do an album now for a couple of grand.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
But that, and this is 83.
Yeah. It's madness, isn't it, that those type of things were happening, so.
It's madness.
So, kind of like the end of that period, really, is this is where we're getting to the end of the beginning here.
Oh, good.
On our notes, and then we'll get to the middle. But so what was the first breakup then? So what was the reasons for the first time you?
More doom and gloom.
We've got to get through this bit, Brian, and then we're into the.
What was the reason for the breakup?
The end of the story is really good, though.
Well, okay. During the making of Canterbury, it became so difficult to record because suddenly the first 2 albums we'd done fairly quickly, and it was a case of let's capture the band live. People used to say, "Oh, you're great live." If we could capture some of that energy in the studio, it'd be great. So we thought, yeah, okay. But when you get to Canterbury, we were suddenly in the top studio in London called Battery, and it had just been vacated by Def Leppard, who'd spent 9 months, I think, recording Pyromania with Mutt Lange, but also Mike Shipley was the engineer, and we got the engineer. We couldn't afford Mutt Lange, He probably wouldn't have wanted to do us anyway. But Mike Shipley was a really world-class engineer and extremely fussy and, you know, perfectionist. So if you can imagine, he just spent 9 months doing Pyromania, and now he's got to do the Diamond Head album in 3 weeks or something. But he couldn't, I don't think, get into the mindset of, well, that'll be all right, that'll do, you know. Yeah, so everything had to be, you know, he's slightly rushing that fill there, go again. So he put the drummer through hell, and so in the end, it was kind of decided we needed a better drummer. This drummer's not cutting it. He's out of time, you know. Sometimes he doesn't hit the snare in exactly the same place twice. Okay, you could watch the VU, and you say, watch the VU, it wouldn't be exactly the same each time. Now, I didn't know it had to be, and perhaps it doesn't, but we would listen to this guy because we thought he must know what he's doing. And so anyway, we took that terrible decision to sack our drummer and my friend for 10 years or whatever, Duncan Scott, and because it became that the album and the band and the money was more important than the friendship, which is horrible. But when you're in debt to a label and you've spent a month already in the studio and you're freaking out with the pressure, you kind of do anything it takes to get it done, get it finished, so you can get out of this hell. And then when the bass player finished, Colin, when he finished all his parts, he just said, I quit, that's it, I'm done. And he left the band. And so now, and then there were two. So then it was down to me and Sean. Sean nearly had a nervous breakdown on that album. I can remember him being in the toilets, rocking like in a fetal position, rocking backwards and forwards. So, I don't know what to do, you know, he's my mate, but you're right, Sean, you know. Yeah. I don't know, I've got no counselling skills. And so I think we found for his mom. His mom drove down and talked him down and went into the toilet and gave him a cup of tea. I don't know, but eventually came to. But there was a lot of pressure on the band. It was a shame, really, because that lineup had some magic, and only after the event do you realise the magic can go. But you need success to sustain a lineup, don't you? Yeah. You know, we can all look at the big bands and think that's the way to do it, but unless you actually start selling loads of records.
So it kind of fell apart in around 84,
well,
85?
The big split happened in 83, then we got you know, the guys and stuff. And we tried to make another album. We never finished it, never got released, and then the band actually stopped in 85 because there was no more money coming in. Reg went to Medan in France, couldn't get a record deal, because you don't really get record deals at Medan. But he didn't know that. And so that was it. There's no more money to pay the crew, there's no more money to pay these guys, because by now we're using professional musicians, not just my mate Dunk who lives up the road. So they're off as well, and you pretty much never see them again. So you're left sort of high and dry, and it all pretty much fell apart then. And then you just start hearing rumours about Sean's going to do a solo album, and you know, okay, and sign with Pete Winkleman's label, I Major Records. So I'm out at the picture.
So basically, the band
saying too much doom and gloom, man.
Yeah, that's it.
It's some fun.
Well, the next period that you all got back together, I guess, would have been the Metallica show, wouldn't it? Which would have been after
92.
92, so it was quiet for the late 80s.
Well, we reformed in 91.
Yeah.
And now we've got another drummer and another bass player. But yeah, in 92...
So was that just a shock to kind of get the call to say, can you come and...
on the day, I think it was November 5th, Lars would phone, you know, we're doing this little gig at the NEC, come down.
I thought Milton Keynes was before that, so it's the...
No, 92, well, we actually got up on stage with Metallica and did Am I Evil and Helpless? Yeah. But that was the original lineup, so that was nice. And then Milton Keynes was, because we'd reformed in 91 in order to do a new record, which turned out to be Death in Progress. And so the release of Death and Progress coincided with the Milton Keynes gig with Metallica, because of course I said you're never going to get a better opportunity to promote it than this, so we should get it out for, you know, June 1993, because we'd started that album in 91, so we'd kind of been faffing about for 2 years, writing different songs, and oh man, nothing runs smooth.
Yeah. So it was on that kind of point really that I think the funny story was the Sean wearing some strange costume or something like this. Yeah.
Yes.
What were your feelings on that on the day?
Oh dear. Sean, we're in Great Linford Manor, which is Pete Winkleman's pad, where he's got a studio, lovely place. So we've got different rooms. Sean comes out of his bedroom in the morning, at say 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. We're probably on at 2 in the afternoon. And he's wearing a Grim Reaper costume. This is news to me. I've never seen it before. And he's got a scythe, which, you know, is about that big, with a cardboard scythe on it that's flapping in the wind. And I said, oh, you know, you're going to wear that? Yeah. So I said, well, you'll either grab the headlines or look at Pratt. You know.
Yeah.
And it also, he goes score, because he's the Grim Reaper. He's trying to make a point. He's trying to say, like the album's called Death and Progress. Unbeknownst to me, he don't want to do another Diamond Head album after this. He's only done it because it's a project to get his advance. Because he'd already done the Notorious album, he'd had his advance. So now he'd been sort of talked into doing a Diamond Head album to get his second advance. Because each time you do a new album, you get another advance. So he did this as contractual obligation. And so he's saying Death and Progress on the Grim Reaper, this is the end of Diamond Head, I'm not doing it anymore. And that was the last gig. But I didn't know that at the time. I presumed, you know, great, we were getting somewhere, we've got a new album out, you know, blah, blah, blah. Off we go. And he got this rubber mask, like a skull. And of course, he's trying to get the mic in the mask, and it sounds like this. It sounded terrible, really. And in the end, you had to take the mask off. If you hadn't thought it through, Addy, you can't sing through a skull mask, can you? You know. Where'd you do? So that didn't work, and he's running around as the Grim Reaper.
I think every band has a Spinal Tap moment, don't they? This
Yes.
was your Spinal Tap moment.
It was indeed. It didn't work. There's 60,000 people there.
Yeah.
It's being recorded for a live album. It's being videoed for MTV. It's on Radio 1.
Yeah.
And he comes on in the Grim Reaper. And he hadn't bothered to tell anybody in the band, by the way, guys, what do you reckon to this?
You like my cardboard?
And we could have all said, fuck off, that's ridiculous. We can't do that. Now just wait till it's too late and then appear. But anyway. But Pete Winkleman was there, who of course funded most of the album and got us the deal with Warner Chappell, and he managed the Notorious project, which was a complete disaster, but at least I wasn't part of that, so don't bother me. And he was watching, and he said, when Sean come on, dressed as the Grim Reaper, he said that was the moment that he wanted the ground to open up and swallow him, you know. And possibly everybody has one of those. Yeah. And that was his moment, because he was so embarrassed, and he said, I just thought, who is advising Sean? Who has he got round him saying, yes, Sean, no, Sean? That Grim Reaper outfit's a great idea, mate.
Yeah. I love it though, when you were explaining that to me, Paul, is
what can you do?
Yeah, that's it. So, I think, is it this period that you did some stuff with Tony Iommi as well?
Name dropper.
Yeah. Well, I've got to do it for you.
Yeah. Yes, we did. I love Tony Iommi.
So can you explain a bit more how that happened? And,
one of my influences, you know, a lot of the early Diamond stuff was very Sabbath. It happened again through Pete Winkleman. Pete Winkleman phoned Tony Iommi's manager and said, Diamond Head, you know, Birmingham, Midlands, Stourbridge, doing a new album. Good to get Tony to, you know, would he mind, type thing, I would imagine. And yeah, came back to reply, yeah, love to. So I got the call from Winkleman, would you like to write a song with Tony Iommi? Yes, please.
Yeah.
Took me a second to think about it. Really? Yeah, great. So they put me in touch and give me the address. He's over in Solihull. And I go over, and he's got a nice big house and welcomes me in. No butler or anything.
Yeah.
Would you like a cup of tea? Yes, so me and the man in black had a cup of tea. And I noticed these gold discs all over the wall, everywhere. And I think, oh God, I might be out of the depth a bit here. I said, how many albums have you sold? Oh, only was 60 million. And I'm thinking, wow, I've got to write a song with this guy. He might think I'm shit. I can't tell him. So anyway, I get my cassette out with my rips on, pop it in. And he goes, well, that's a good one. And so we select a couple of mine, and then he gets a draw out, and he gets his cassette out as well, with some riffs on. And it sounds about as good as mine,
Yeah.
But he's probably got a little cassette recorder, and he pops it into a chord and goes... So I did the same, and I go, that's a good one. And we built this song in a day called Starcross, from a couple of his riffs and a couple of my riffs, and it was great,
Yeah.
But I mean, weirdly, Sean didn't want to go. I said to Sean, oh, we're going over to see Tony Iommi on Sunday. You go, I ain't going. Why? Why wouldn't you want to go and meet Tony Iommi and write a song with him? I can't remember the excuse, but anyway, I went and we had to bring the tape back to Sean, and then he would put lyrics on. Because I don't do lyrics, I do music. And it worked out fine, because Sean's a fantastic writer. But I thought that was really strange and a little bit rude to not go and be part of it when Tony Iommi's invited us.
Oh, we'd invited him as well.
Yeah. Well, we'd been invited to go and write a song with Tony Iommi. He hadn't said, Brian, come in, but don't bring that with a guy.
Yeah.
So I thought, what the hell? Why would you not want to do that?
Yeah.
I could never quite fathom that.
Yeah.
But anyway.
That's great. So what's and I presume it's around this time as well. Like say, you got the royalties sorted out with Metallica as well.
Hallelujah.
Yeah. So yeah, that finally got sorted. The kind of happy ending to this period, the middle period, though, is it's kind of enabled you from those 4 tracks, I guess, being covered by Metallica.
Yeah.
That has basically given you the means to carry on, hasn't it? Yeah. And
It's been an income.
Yeah.
It's been an income since about 89, 90, something like that. I mean, it took a little bit of time for Dandy to get out of the red into the black, and then it took a bit of time for the royalties to come back from this dodgy deal that we'd signed in the 79, 80. So I had to get a lawyer, I had to make sure everything was transferred over. And yeah, once I started getting royalties, everything changed really. I was able to buy a house, etc., etc. It makes life easier and a bit more. So now I get 6 monthly royalties. Thank God. From 4 songs really, because the other Diamond Head songs, like them, I love them, but they don't make that much money really compared to the Metallica covers. Because the Garage Inc. album sold 5 million copies. So you can imagine that's going to create a chunk of income if you've got 4 songs on there.
Yeah.
And there's none of the Diamond Head albums sold, anything like that. Probably you'd be lucky to sell 40,000 of something like Borrowed Time or maybe Death in Progress.
And when was the Nick Tart era then? So that kind of started in the 2000s, was it?
Yeah. So
and kind of
the band reformed again with Sean in 2002. No, well, first of all, we did an acoustic EP, which took 4 years. No, sorry, 2 years. I do beg your pardon. It took 2 years to record an acoustic EP with Sean. 4 songs that we'd already written, like Into the Nations.
2 tracks a year.
So we did about 10 gigs, and after a while, playing acoustic guitar, I started to think, I don't like this anymore. I want to play electric guitar. I want to hit a chord. I want some sustain. I don't want to be. I think the acoustic thing suited Sean because he didn't have to sing over the top of a band, raging drums and backline. So he could sing and be interesting over the top of an acoustic guitar, or 2 acoustic guitars, should I say? So we did that for a bit, and then it became an electric band again because we got offered this gig in New York called Metal Meltdown, something like that. So the promoter rang Sean and said, you know, can you do this gig and we'll pay you and we'll fly you out and all that. And it became too good an offer to turn down. He said to us, have you still got your own hair? And we used to say, well...
Have you got your own hair?
I am, fortunately. I'm lucky. I'm very lucky. I used to say, the wigs are on dat. You know, the music's real, but the wigs are on dat. So we did this gig in 2002, and it kind of spurred us on to keep going, and we lasted a bit. Unfortunately, I got talked into doing another album, which this time Sean and myself paid for, which was a big mistake, because halfway through the album, he said, I don't want to call it Diamond Head anymore, I want to call it Host. Oh, okay, why? And then he came up with this reason, like, well, get rid of all the negative connotations associated with the name Diamond Head. And I'd go, what are they then? You know, well, you know, get away from the new wave of British heavy metal tag. And I think, well, these are all good things, aren't they? The fact that we're lucky to have a name, we're lucky to have been covered by Metallica, we're part of this new wave of British heavy metal. Great, let's go. But no, he wanted to call it Host, be a new band, and have a fresh start, and don't play any Diamond Head songs, just play the new album. I could just see that was being a problem. Yeah. And I thought, well, if we've spent all this money on this album, how are we going to get a record deal if it's not going to be called Diamond Head? They're not going to want to take on a band who are all in their 40s, and they're called Host. It means nothing, does it? I thought, at the very least, they'd put Host featuring Sean Harris and Brian Tatler from Diamond Head. So you'd have kind of defeated the object, because people would turn up and go, am I evil?
Yeah.
So we had all that, and that lasted about a year, that argument. And the album has never come out. Ridiculous. I wish I'd never done it.
Yeah. I think you're close to a mental breakdown.
Yeah, a little bit. It felt like that at times. So in the end, enough's enough. I just had to pretty much move on and say, we're going to get another singer. I've had enough of being told no.
Yeah.
We need somebody in the band who can say yes. So when you say, we've got a gig in Germany, okay, great. When? Not? Well, why are we doing it? Why, you know, who's paying for it? I want 2 backdrops, one with Host on and one with... And who's doing the lights? And well, we're on at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Yeah, but we still need a lighting engineer. So I'd had enough of all that. And I thought, let's get somebody else in. It's a big thing to do, to change your lead singer, but once we got Nick in, it was all systems go. The next thing that happened was we got to tour with Megadeth. We did 22 dates across Europe, sold out. Fantastic. And I think if Sean had been in the band, he might have said, no, I don't want to do that.
I think that was the first period you started enjoying it again, wasn't it? And
I did enjoy
being
it.
Out on
some
being
great,
out on the road,
some fabulous memories.
Yeah.
You still end up doing little pubs and clubs occasionally, but also occasionally you get to do a big festival, or you know, they sometimes throw me a bone.
Yeah. So they were. It was around that point. I think the biggest gig, otherwise we said in the Midlands today. I think the biggest gig you ended up doing around that period in all of your career was then Sonisfield, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Because
which was actually
that leads nicely to that. We'd done Milton Keynes Bowl, which was 60,000, but I think in a way Sonisfield was bigger because we did 2 nights, didn't we? We did Nebworth and
which is actually my stag do as well.
Okay, yes, that's right.
Yeah, I went there for my stag.
So we did the 2 nights. So as the guy in the interview said, we played to about 100,000 people over the 2 nights. Yeah. So that was incredible.
And you went to go on stage at the end of
both nights. I got invited on stage to play Am I Evil at the first gig and then Helpless at the second.
And I've got to tell you, your drummer Carl obviously told me a very funny story when I was out with him in New York, and he said, Brian, the cheeky git, he said he basically got flown to flown in Metallica's convoy to the next gig, and we had to go in our hire van and drive to the next gig in France.
Absolutely true. Well, we booked the ferry So we were all due to leave Nebworth at about 6 o'clock in order to catch the ferry. And then Lars would say, play tomorrow in France. And I'd say, well, I've got a good gig. He said, it's all right, come on now, crew playing, we'll sort it.
Yeah.
So I did that, and or rather, you know, we were playing at Nebworth. I think it hadn't been planned, but he wanted me to play. So I said, okay, then, well, I'll stop. The van can go. So they spent all night driving to this, you know, Formula One motel in God knows where. They didn't get there till 6 o'clock in the morning. And I, meanwhile, I'm in a nice hotel at Luton Airport, courtesy of Metallica, with the crew. Yeah. And then we get on our private plane, and it's just all Metallica crew, and all dressed in black. And nobody speaks. And then you get off at the end, and we were at the carousel waiting for your bags to come out. Every single bag is black, except mine, which is pink with flowers on. Because I borrowed it off my stepdaughter, Rebecca. Because I hadn't got a suitable case, I said, I need to, so I'll borrow yours. And I didn't realise I was going to. But to be fair, not one of them commented. They probably saw it come past and thought, who's the new guy?
That's brilliant. So yeah, we're getting really to the point now of obviously this gig happened here, which is a great one to look at. So what was the story behind that as well? But is this was before Raz, wasn't it?
Okay. This is 2011. So yeah, before Raz. This is
after Sonosphere.
This is December.
Yeah.
So at Sonosphere, Lars said, what are you doing in December? And he showed me his diary and he goes, look, these dates here between the 5th and the 10th of December. Keep them dates free because we're going to do something.
Yeah.
So when Lars asks you to do something, you do it. I thought, okay, that sounds interesting. And then a bit like closer to the day, he'd say, right, how'd you fancy flying out to San Francisco? Because we're doing the 30th anniversary of Metallica, and I thought you could get up and you could play the 4 songs we covered. And we thought, yeah, okay, great. Well, I said, okay, great. And he said, I'm going to ask Sean. And I thought, okay, that's interesting, because I haven't spoken to Sean for 10 years. And I thought, I don't fancy sitting next to him on the plane. And having, the earache for, 11 hours.
He wouldn't want to call the Diamond Head on the way over.
Justification, that's right. He'd have wanted to call his host. So anyway, I said, well, it's your gig. Yeah. Invite Sean, you've got to invite Sean. So anyway, that's what happened, but we flew separately. We had separate hotels. Not really my insistence or anything, we're not the Eagles, but I think he probably thought it'd be safer to keep them apart, and we don't want fisticuffs, pulling each other's hair out, handbags at dawn. We don't want that, do we? So that's what happened, and then we actually met up at Metallica HQ. Yeah. Everything's fine, Sean's fine. No prickling weirdness, he didn't ask any strange questions, and I think we both realised we were there for the right reason, which is for Metallica, for Lars and Metallica to celebrate their big 30-year anniversary. And they'd learned 80 songs, Metallica had, because they'd invited all kinds of guests, from Rob Halford to Ozzy Osbourne.
I suppose that was a nice kind of draw the line under it, though.
It was cool. It was cool. I have bumped into him in Tesco since. And he was a little bit... You know what he said? I'm in Tesco, right? Go around the corner, there's Sean. And he goes, what are you doing here? And I goes, I'm shopping. Okay, that's sort of... So really. I'm stalking you, Sean. There he is.
I'm trying to get my white bread. Or your brown sauce or red sauce, which was one of the questions, I think.
Yeah, it could be. Sean Harris was spotted in Tesco's. It's in classic rock.
That was one of the questions Colin sent in, though, I think.
Was it?
Yeah, brown sauce or red sauce.
Oh, red.
Oh, okay.
It's a bit random, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one of the questions, yeah. So
Okay.
I'll
He
try
was
and get
trying
it.
to be different, wasn't he? He
Yeah.
probably thinks, how many people said, when did you meet Lars?
Yeah. So it's confirmed and Brian Tatler has red sword.
Yeah, I don't like Brian.
Okay. So really, Nick obviously left to go to Australia. There was no big fallout with him
Oh,
in the end.
Manchester going to Australia didn't help, did it? The other side of the world, 13,000 miles away. How are you going to keep the band going when your singer lives in Australia? Couldn't have gone much further, could he? Just taking the piss.
Yeah.
So,
and I remember you saying
we had to pay to fly him backwards and forwards for gigs, you know, to try and keep the band going. So, because you couldn't do any one-offs, all you could do is, if a one-off came, you'd have to build a tour around it. So we end up playing places we don't particularly want to play in order to pay the cost of Nick's flight and all the aggro, you know. But I mean, yeah, it's great, Nick. It's, you know, it's fine. We got on brilliant and all that. But in the end, we had to have a meeting and say, enough's enough. We've been doing it for, I don't know how many years. We can't keep flying Nick backwards and forwards for gigs. It's just too complicated. He nearly missed a whole tour because you have to apply for work visas, and he applied for the wrong one, and it was like, we can go in tomorrow, and he still ain't got his work visa, and it was causing Carl masses of stress. He was ready to blow. He's bad enough as it is, without having that aggro. So I think I realised this is getting silly, and I spoke to Nick and I said something like, imagine. He lives in Brisbane, right? I said, imagine your guitarist moves to England. Are you going to fly him backwards and forwards for gigs, or are you going to get another guitarist? He said, I'll probably get another guitarist. He said, I'll probably get another guitarist if you move to Cullen. So that was the end of that, and you know, it's the way it is. So I just thought we've got to get a singer that lives in the UK, because originally Nick lived in Canada, and I didn't know he was going to go to Australia.
And Carl was in New York as well.
Yeah, that's another story. Yeah. But yeah, so we got this guy Raz, who's fantastic, lives in London. So
how many auditions as well did you go through, or was it?
I saw a few singers. I put the word out, and we had a couple of guys come along and try out and stuff. And I had this guy called Lee Small who was really good, but in the end, way too busy and couldn't fit us in. So we got Raz. You'd send him a tape, a backing track, and he would sing on top of it and send it back. Fantastic. So I said, okay, sounds brilliant, but you're going to have to come up to rehearse with us just to make sure, and we'll go through some numbers. And within half an hour, I just thought, yeah, that's it, he's great. It'll be perfect. It'll be perfect. And that was it. So we did a gig with Raz in July 14. That was his first gig, and he's been with us ever since. And of course, he didn't just want to do the back catalogue, really. To make his mark, he suggested, why don't we write an album? See? And I wasn't particularly excited about the idea of doing another album, but because of Raz's enthusiasm, I just thought we've got to try, at least try. I owe it to the guy to try. So we started writing together, and within a few weeks, it was obvious it was going to be great. So,
and I think flicking forward now, obviously the last couple of years, to me, I think, you know, from an outsider looking at it, it feels like, you know, this is probably for you one of the best periods you've been in the band. It's the busiest you've been. The new album was received great by the press. I mean, you picked up Metal Hammer, Krang, you know, all gave it
awesome,
really, really great reviews. Toured America twice now, haven't you?
Yeah.
So
I didn't expect that.
This is the happy ending to the story, really.
It is. This is a positive note.
Yeah.
I didn't expect the press to love the album. I just kind of made the best album we could, and we hit on this brief idea of it should sound like Diamond Head.
Raz, a great album it is, yeah.
So Raz kind of, I think the last thing he wanted to do was fuck up the band and lose the punters we've got, so that the fans think, oh, I don't like the new album, you know, I prefer the old stuff. So he kind of said, what, you know, look at all the great songs Diamond Head have written over the years. Let's do something like that, And that brief was a good idea because it meant, and if someone come along and they said, I've got this song, then it sounds a bit too much like this or that, we could say, it don't really sound like Diamond Head, does it? So that would, okay then. So instead of them getting offended and having the because we're not doing more songs, if you don't sound like Diamond Head, we're not going to use it. So we managed to write 11 songs, and great, you know. And then once Raz put his vocals on, you know, initially he sang in rehearsal a little bit, but we were mainly focusing on the arrangement to get the drums right. I couldn't quite tell how good he was going to be or what he was going to do. Occasionally you'd have a glimpse and you think, oh, that's nice. But once he put his guide vocals down to the drums, and I got a chance to put the guitar down and have a listen, I just thought, wow, he's fantastic, this guy is fantastic singer. So I think that's been a big part of why everybody seems to like the new album. Partly Raz, partly the brief that it should sound like Diamond Head. And in a way, you're giving the people what they want, aren't you? Because you could go too far. You could be a bit proggy or a bit too metal, or a bit, you know. You could take it in a different direction. But that's not really what people want, is it?
I suppose the, like I say, as we talked about before, the positive end to the whole of the Diamond Head story for you is as well, is the, I think people have different levels of what they think success is, and I always feel that, to me, success is you being able to basically do what you want to do for all of your career with your guitar. Your guitar is basically paid for you to live, hasn't it?
I am lucky, and sometimes I appreciate that fact, that I've been a professional musician since 1980.
Yeah.
So sometimes I, what's the word? I measure my success by big bands, I think. Well, look at AC/DC and Metallica and Led Zeppelin, you think, well, you know, we're nowhere near, we'll never write an album that'll sell 25 million copies. So you get down on yourself, beat yourself up, and think, But as you pointed out the one time, a lot of bands would like to be where Diamond Head are, to have done what Diamond Head did.
The prestige, you know?
Yeah, because some bands don't get out the rehearsal room. A lot of the bands in the new wave of British heavy metal period, there's a book about new wave of British heavy metal, and there is 400 bands. Most of those bands were lucky to make one single that they would probably pay for themselves and then disappear back to their 9-to-5 jobs. Only about 3 or 4 bands would probably make a living playing music from that whole bunch of 400 bands. Yeah. So it is rare, but as I say, it's easy to forget that what we did, you know, what we actually did, and dwell on the negatives, you know, because you as I say, I look at the big bands and you kind of aspire, don't you, and dream to play to 5,000 people instead of 5.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, you know, you're still out there touring, playing to plenty of people.
Fantastic.
Selling records, getting great press, and that prestige and those quotes that you're still getting today. For
There's some fantastic plus points. We do get offered some great gigs from time to time. Sometimes you get the little gig, but you have to kind of check yourself and think, okay, we're playing Poughkeepsie on a Tuesday night, we've never been here before, it ain't going to be round, is it? So you get the good and bad, and I have to steel myself sometimes and say, living the dream, you know. Yeah. We can't all be playing 10,000 people coming in. So I am grateful. I'd much rather play guitar than work in a shop or something.
Okay, brilliant. Well, I think we're at a good stage now where we're going to go to a couple of audience questions, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
And I did actually, let's just, before we do that, can we talk about this as well, obviously, which we need to mention here?
Yes, this is painted by John Brooke, who's a local guy. He told me he's from Sheffield, but he lives in Stourbridge now. So I made his acquaintance. I think he's here, or he's gone.
Are you here, John?
John's gone.
He's gone, he's that bored.
Will you mind if we add to it then?
No.
I think it wouldn't mind if Brian added to it.
What? He just simply said, because he paints pictures, obviously, and he painted one of my friend Scott, and he said, give me a picture of yourself that you like, and I'll do a painting. And I thought, well, that's a nice idea, isn't it? It ain't going to cost me anything.
Yeah.
And I gave him, and he painted this great big thing, look at it. I thought he might do a little.
Isn't that amazing though?
No, brilliant.
I wish someone would paint
It took him 2 years to do that. And, he's done a fantastic job. So now, of course, he'd like to find a buyer. And I think the idea is to do limited prints and, signed, things like that, and sell them probably through the website and things like that at some point. But they haven't been done yet. But this is the first time that it's been unveiled, shall we say.
Yeah.
It's not been seen. I've seen it, but you've not seen it before. So they brought it in this afternoon and set it up, and wanted everybody to see it and get some maybe feedback and fair play.
Yeah.
I couldn't have done it. No.
Amazing. Okay. Well, John has got some cards here. If anyone wants to take a card, we can hand them out at the end, or I'm sure you can take pictures of it as well and all that type of stuff. But please don't knock it over or touch it or anything like that, or graffiti it.
Yep.
Okay, I can't really see, but I'm going to hand this to my brother, I think, if he's around. If he can maybe hand this to anyone who wants to ask a question.
It's embarrassing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Has anybody got a question?
Evening, Brian.
Evening. Who's that?
It's Jez.
Oh,
Jez
bloody hell. All right, Jez.
Twofold question, actually. Respect for you in terms of the gigs that you've done.
Thank you.
My question really is, what's the motivation if you go from 60,000, 90,000 people at Wentworth down to 10 at a small pub? What's the motivation around that?
I think I've got no choice. It's just logistics, isn't it? It's practicality. They can't all be like that. But it does take a certain amount of, reality check to realise, those gigs are few and far between. The giant gigs are the special moments, and you never forget things like that. One of my favourite gigs of all time was Reading in 1982. The only time we played it, but it just seemed like Diamond Head were going up and up and up. And then I didn't know there was going to be a down, but it felt like, wow, we're getting somewhere. Your next day you could be playing a little gig in, Nova Scotia or somewhere, I don't know. And you have to steel yourself and just do your best, play a good gig. I take pride in my work. I like to do a good gig. I never drink or drugs or any of that is all, rock and roll myth as far as I'm concerned. I think I get more satisfaction from doing a job well done, and I like to play. I like to play properly. I like to enjoy the moment as best I can, and hopefully it's not too loud and don't give me tinnitus.
Sorry, just very quickly.
Yeah.
I know you drink. Bathers or Envil.
Yeah, but on a social occasion, I wouldn't drink. When you turn up to a gig, and I don't know if you do know this, but you go into the dressing room and there's 24 cans of lager, and I think they always want you to drink and expect you to drink. But I don't. I'll have a cup of tea or a glass of water or something, or maybe an orange juice. But there's no way I'm going to go on stage, get pissed and make a fool of myself, or play badly, or embarrass the rest of the guys. And I think that's very unprofessional. And I always think when you're at a gig, the band should be sober, entertain the people, and the crowd can get drunk, and when I go and watch a band, I can get drunk if I want, but I want them to be on the money. Yeah. And I think it's amateur hour if they're drunk. I've seen drunk bands. I've seen a band where the guy stood on top of his amp and it all fell over, and he just, after 2 songs, that was the end of the gig. It's only JB's, but I just thought, what's all that about? That's no way. So, I thought I ain't doing that.
Fair enough.
Thank you for your question, Jez. Does it answer your question?
No, you didn't say that it was Bathers or Envil.
Is that the question? Bloody hell, I waffled on from that, didn't I? Bathams.
Right.
I like Bathams. The Unicorn in Waller Street. I lived opposite the Unicorn for about 30 years and probably hardly ever went in. My mum, lived opposite the Unicorn for 54 years. And she said, I've never been in that pub. So I took her in one day to show, and she said, I'll have an orange juice. Teetotal her whole life. Yeah. You can't come in here and have an orange.
Any other questions there? Is it,
Hi, Brian.
Hello.
David Garrett.
Oh, yeah. Hello, David. Here you go. Yeah.
I'm on the front.
Yeah, I can see you.
Couple of things. You were talking about Canterbury, the album. My recollection at the time, because, you know, our relationship, we were doing the
merch. Absolutely. You did a fantastic job with the merch.
Thank you. And Anne, my wife, ran the fan club, as you know. So we had a lot of insight into fans coming back and whatever was wanted. And on the Canterbury album, my recollection was that part the MCA divorce, if you like, from Diamond Head, was the pressing on the Canterbury album was faulty.
Right.
It was...
you kind of saying the management blamed MCA for that?
Well, I was at a few of the meetings, as you know. And but the actual album itself, the pressing of the album, they had a recall. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes, of course.
And
20,000 copies jumped.
Yeah.
That's right. I remember it well. People would come backstage and moan at me like it was my fault. I bought your album, it jumps. I had one guy said I took it back and it still jumped, and in the end I bought Dio's album. Crestfallen. Okay.
But that was a major problem between the management, Reginald Lynn, and Stuart Watson, who was the MD at MCA, and there was a fallout personally between them.
Right.
And Reg, quite rightly, was saying that you did a bad job in the pressing.
That's not MCA's fault, is it? That's kind of the pressing plant's fault, or the mastering.
Yeah.
But it's not MCA's fault. I mean, why would MCA? They wouldn't cut corners or do anything like that. I think it was just one of them bad.
But it's caused that relation between your management.
Well, they should have. You know, all bands have problems. Some bands have much bigger problems than that, and they survive. People die in bands, for example, and they get replaced. But just because we had 20,000 copies that jumped, they should have just done another 20,000. Get them out as quick as possible, move on, let's get on with the next album. But for it all, you know, toys out the pram, and we're not going to, you know, we're going to drop you, or... I mean, the MCA thing at the end was the big board meeting where there's myself, Sean, and Linda. And Charlie Ayres, who's our A&R man, and he's been supporting us all this time. And he said, either you change your management or we will drop you. And Sean was like, okay. So that was that. And so he washed his hands of Dandy, walked out the room, and I never saw him again. MCA didn't pick up our contract, and the money stopped, and that was it. We were dead. Because I think Sean naively presumed, well, okay, we're just going to sign to RCA then. But once you're dropped by a big label and you haven't even recouped, it's going to be tough to claw your way back.
You've got a bad name.
You've got a bad name there. Why have you been dropped? There must be a reason. So that was not a good move. I mean, if it was up to me, I would have said, okay, let's get a new manager. In fact, we did have a manager come to the studio while we were recording Canterbury, introduced himself, a friend of Charlie's. Sean was late for the meeting, decidedly prickly, basically didn't want to know, and he was just loyal to his mum. He said to me, my mum's the best manager in the world. So I thought, oh, okay. And what can you say to that kind of loyalty?
Yeah.
It's not like she's gone on to manage Coldplay, is it?
Yeah.
I've never heard of her since.
Yeah.
But she'd probably say, yeah, well, I only wanted to manage her.
Yeah.
I'm putting words in her mouth.
One more thing, Brian. I've just got a bit of a bone to pick with you, personally.
Sure.
I took my lad, who was about 4 at the time, to watch you rehearse at an old place in live. And sat him on your drummer's knee, and since the second he got back home, he wanted to be a drummer.
Right.
And of course, the house was filled with drums from then on. And he's now sitting next to you. So,
that's me, by the way.
I know. What can I say?
It's you to blame.
But if he'd have played guitar, he might have done better.
I'll leave that to you. Thank you.
Yeah. It's not so loud as well, is it?
My brother played guitar, so no, that's not
no. Drums are horrible, aren't they? You know, noisy, crashy, bangy.
Yeah.
And you've got to move them around, haven't you?
You never get any help from the singers or the guitar players, do you?
No, not at all. It's your own problem.
Yeah.
You decided to be the drummer. You're going to have to sort it out.
Yeah. But this is not a pick on the drummer night anyway. This is a pick on Brian night.
Pick on Brian night. Yeah.
So if there's no other questions, I do see there's a guitar set up next to you, and someone did say, "Are you going to play your guitar?"
Yeah, okay.
So is that a good point to finish on, Brian?
Well, has anybody got any more questions?
Has anyone got any more questions?
Yeah, isn't it?
We'll finish with some more questions and then.
By the way, if anyone is desperate for the toilet, we're not going to embarrass you or anything like that. You can get up and go, or it's fine.
Hi, Brian.
Hello.
It's Chris Whaley.
Hello, Chris.
All I was going to ask you was, going back to your early days, really early, how did you get on, like, when you were starting up as a band, like, getting gigs and, like, sort of promoting? I know you said, Linda, we all know, like, Sean's mum was, like a manager and everything at the time, but how did you get on amongst yourselves if you wanted to promote yourselves, like, and get your things round?
You mean before we had management and stuff?
Yes.
Well, as I touched on, in the early days, we hadn't got a clue. So we'd just play. We played the Crispin Inn in Stourbridge, we played the YMCA. We'd pretty much go from one gig to the next. Where
the song or the venue? The YMCA?
The YMCA, yeah. You know, it was on Hagley Road, wasn't it? They knocked it down before we were born. So we'd go round and we'd say, we're a band, and can we play here? You know, you'd play anywhere, any pub, the Hare and Hounds in Woolscote, and the Bull's Head in Lye, we played there. So you just pretty much sat, you'd maybe hear of another band. There was a few other bands from Stourbridge. There was a band called Effigy, there was Ezra Pound, Precious Metal, etc. And you'd probably think, oh, they're playing the Bull's Head in Lye, right, we'll go up then and we'll have a look, and we'll think, right, can we play here, mate? And they'd say, yeah, if you like, you know, next Thursday, I would fancy next Thursday. And so it was just simply that, but we were so crap at it. You'd have one gig, and then 6 months later you might have another gig. And that's a terrible way to do it, because you build up so much stress towards the gig, and you're all nervous because you haven't played for 6 months. So you're better off doing a little group of dates, or ideally a tour, but as I say, we hadn't got a clue. And it took first manager Steve Busfield really to kind of take that role from us and say, well, I'll get you some gigs. All you want when you start is some gigs, I think. And so when somebody comes along and says, I'll get you some gigs, that's it. It's brilliant, isn't it? Mm. Take all that work off you, because you don't know what you're doing. And I mean, in one way, it left us to write songs, because that's all we had. We used to rehearse every week. And we focused on the songwriting, which has been the biggest thing about Diamond Head, the songs. I've made more money from the songs than I have from playing live. So that's been the biggest thing. So if we'd have just done lots and lots of little gigs, maybe that we wouldn't have written those songs. We could have ended up a tribute band. Couldn't we? A Black Sabbath tribute band.
No, I can't see it going that way.
No, they hadn't been invented, had they, really, back then, fortunately. But punk rock was, moving off slightly, but punk rock was important to Diamond Head because it came out around the same time we started, and it showed us that you don't have to be Richie Blackmore. You can be Steve Jones. You can play 3 chords and Truth and get on stage and do it now. Yeah. Go. And I was all for that. I was all for let's do it. Let's go. because I'd been in my bedroom trying to get good, trying to work out how to play Highway Star. I couldn't play Highway Star, but I thought I could play Pretty Vacant.
Yeah.
So let's go!
Yeah.
Go, go, go!
Brilliant, thank
One
you.
more question at the back.
Okay. All right, Brian.
Hello.
All right.
I reckon
All right.
Just want to get your side of the story on something we came to a gig. I think it was a couple of years ago. It's probably in fact about 6 years ago.
Okay.
It was in Wolverhampton, the Civic, maybe the Wolfram Hall or somewhere like that. It was at the time when Carl, the drummer, was had some major health problems. And it was real touch and go at the time if he was even going to make the gig. I actually came to the gig. And
was that the Slade Rooms?
Slade Rooms, yeah, it wasn't the Wolf.
That's right.
Yeah. Just wondered because Carl went through the gig, but there was some real touch and go moments where he looked like he wasn't going to get to the end of
That's right, he looked very pale. And
yeah, from what we saw the gig and it was an amazing gig, but we're just wondering what was going on stage, what was going through your mind and what was the vibe of the band?
I suppose it would just be a case of you want to get the gig. You hope Carl's all right and he'll be okay, but you kind of just switch off after a bit and just go for it. And I just focus on what I'm doing mainly. But prior to that, he had, I think it was an ulcer or something, or a burst ulcer or something like that. So he was in hospital. He had to have blood transfusion, and he was really ill for a while. We cancelled a couple of gigs, and like I say, it was touch and go whether we were going to do the Slade Rooms. And there was a gig in Norway coming up, and we thought we might have to cancel that as well. So we toyed with the idea of getting a deck in and all that. We didn't do it in the end. And Carl said, well, I'm not going to be able to do York, but I think I can do Wolverhampton and I think I can do Norway type thing. So we just did that, and we just, fingers crossed. And before that, Carl was on the ferry at one point, and you know when you get on the car deck and then you have to go up about 6 flights of stairs to get to the bit with the restaurant and all that. Carl's like this, you know, and he's gone white and he's out of puff, and I'm thinking, that's not normal for Carl. I thought, there's something not right, and he did look white, and so we were a bit concerned. You were all right, Carl, you know? Yeah, just a bit. But so we'd obviously got this problem. I think it might have been to do with taking painkillers or something like that, because caused some kind of bleeding. But he ended up, as I say, hospitalised and having to have blood transfusions. But he's all right now. You'll be pleased to hear. He's over in America at the moment, and we're going over in about 3 weeks' time, and we start in Ohio.
You got some big gigs, haven't you?
Yeah.
You've got some big festivals.
We're doing a big festival in Oklahoma.
Rocklahoma.
Called Rocklahoma. With Soundgarden.
Yeah.
Our singer Raz, his favourite singer is Chris Cornell. So he's got a dream of meeting Chris Cornell. Yeah. He said, I'll try not to be a fanboy if he's there, but I might have to fall over it a bit. And then we're doing another festival called Psycho Circus in Las Vegas, which sounds fun.
Yeah.
We've got a big one in Spain, Les Endos or something. I don't know. That's a Genesis song.
Are you taking your pink suitcase?
No, that's been banished. Now I've got a proper one now, a black one.
Yeah.
Because obviously that's the colour. Black is the colour. There's no black here.
Yeah.
I can't do that again. The shame! Oh, the shame!
Brilliant. Okay, Brian. Do you want to grab that guitar and
if you like,
show the kids how it's done?
I'm not going to play the V. Oh. But I just thought I'd bring it along.
Yeah.
This is the... Yeah, where's the mic? Oh, I'll just say, this is the original Flying V that I've had since 1979. The one I went down to London with. It cost something like £490 back then. And I put the money in my sock, because I thought somebody's going to mug me. Or if they do mug me, they'll never think to look in my sock. So I bought it from the shop in London. I thought, it'd be an advert in Melody Maker or something. And I found them, you still got that Flying V? Yeah. So go down on the train. My mum was ever so worried. Oh, he's going to London, you know, and he's got £500 on him. I don't know what's going to happen. And I come back on the train, and of course I'm on the train with this as well. I'm thinking, somebody could nick the guitar, can they? I've got away with it so far. I haven't had the money stolen, but they might steal the guitar.
You seem like quite a worrier.
Oh, well, I probably am a worrier, yeah. But I got it back safely, and it became kind of the thing, iconic kind of shape for Flying V. And I always think if you're going to have a Flying V, you better be able to play. And if you walk on stage with a guitar with this much of a statement, you better be able to play, because you're going to look stupid if you're going to play, you know, Ring a Roses or something.
So while Brian's just setting up, I mean, I'm
going to play the Les Paul then.
I think you can have a quick round of applause if that's okay, Brian. Yeah. Thank you for that. And, I'm going to exit the stage because I can't be on stage while you're rocking out. So thank you very much, Brian.
Can you hear it? Or shall I turn it up really loud and freak everybody out?
Would you like it louder?
You can hear that, can you? What have we got? Is that volume? Yeah. Couple of Diamond Head songs that I'll play a couple of excerpts.
Mr. Brian Tatler, everyone. Thank you, Brian. I'm sure Brian's going to stick around for a bit, aren't you? And have a chat to everyone, because it's very informal. Last thing I wanted to say, actually, Brian, which we forgot to mention, but we could get some help from everyone here. Has anyone ever heard of Home of Metal? Which is it's a website which is based in Birmingham, and they've had a lot of funding basically to do. I think they've had something like £250,000 to put this together. It's a lottery heritage, I think, funded website. They've got basically it's the Birmingham and Black Country most influential metal bands, which they say are the most influential metal bands, which I think is obviously Black Sabbath, Napalm Death, Judas Priest, and one other band.
There's a band called Godflesh.
But they've left out completely the history and story of Diamond Head, which for it just seems absolutely crazy to me. So,
and Witchfinder General.
Oh, right, okay. So yeah, how they can leave out Diamond Head, obviously the massive influence you had in Home of Metal, which is something about the Black Country and Birmingham metal bands. It just seems disgraceful, really. So anyone does feel the inkling to write them.
You're going to, aren't you?
I'm going to. Yeah,
strongly worded.
A strongly worded email.
Yes.
But yeah, if anyone just want to write to them, it's homeofmetal.com, and I think it is just worth saying, how about including some Diamond Head in the story here as well. So yeah, that's it. That's all I wanted to say on that. That was my little gripe at the end. But yeah, so thanks again to Brian. And
I've enjoyed that. It's a slightly different thing for me, but seems to be okay. I think you might have enjoyed it anyway. Thanks for coming, and I'll be sticking around if you want to. Yeah. If there's anything to be signed, or you've got a bone to pick, I'm not rushing off. Okay.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.